Viscount Nort, the garden specialist, said, "Imagine this. A peaceful state of nature. In this place, there's order and beauty that is unseen. Why do you think the humans yearn for the power of the gods? That is because only gods have the ability to create. The art of creating something out of nothingness. Don't you think that is the closest one to a god? As I build my garden, I feel like I become a god." Lloyd looks at him and thinks that this old man really loves what he does. And for him, he was such an amazing person. His face turns into something hideous while laughing, knowing that he can make sure to make him overwork for him. Nort said while laughing, "I'm going to meet with other people involved in this construction. Since you are unaware of this much, you can just sit out on this meeting." Lloyd bowed down and replied, "I am so embarrassed of myself. I will work myself endlessly so that I can become someone who is worthy of a seat in that meeting." After Nort leaves, there is no way for Lloyd to be sitting around because Lloyd plays a battle using his pets like a Pokemon. Babiong was the villain in the story, and he ordered Podong to release a thunderbolt, and Babiong was acting like he was electrocuted by it. Like an evil bastard, he shouted, "You are mine," and then he threw the nuts like Pokemon balls. But Babiong easily evaded it, and he was not able to catch this Pokemon. Podong, his Pokemon, rebels and attacks him in the stomach, but still, he is happy for getting money without even working. On the other hand, Javier was running for his life to go to his young master. As soon as he arrived, he told his young master that the queen was in the area, which made Lloyd shock. He hurriedly raised up the table and put all the paperwork on top of it. And as the queen arrives, he acts like he is solving a very hard differential calculus problem, like his head is about to burst out. He acts like he is surprised by the arrival of the queen and bends his body to bow down. He said, "I pay respect to the owner of this land." The queen told him that he was obviously doing something pretty fake. The queen asks him, "You have been playing, haven't you?" Lloyd was sweating because the queen really knew his schemes. The queen told him, "Do you think Viscount Nort is an idiot? Being able to climb from a commoner to a Viscount isn't achieved by someone by just working well." A day before that, the Viscount told the queen, "The dragon statue that was made of bones that was built before your statue in the middle of the garden, and the boat that was made to appreciate the splendor of it all. I have given lots of thought to how they should be created. However, because of the difference in water level between the start and the end points, the speed is too fast. I don't have any solutions for this right now." The queen asks him, "So you want to abolish that idea?" Nort replied, "No. The young man known as Lloyd Frontera has proposed a solution. He suggested we create a step before the starting point and install the valve door at the end of that step. Once the boat is in, we will close the rear valve door and lower the water level by removing water. Once the water level is equal, we will open the front valve door and allow the boat to depart." Other than this problem, we were also able to solve other issues with his help. And every time he resolved a problem, he would bow down and say, "I am simply a fool who is just speaking my thoughts out loud." As to whether it is actually feasible, only someone as wise and experienced as you will be able to decide on that. Nort said, "He resolved the problems with his abundance of knowledge and talent, but passed the credits over to me. He has given up on his desire to just play around while gaining profits, and is putting aid to the construction. I would say he is the role model of a truly competent person." Hearing that made Lloyd panic. In his mind, "Damn it, what kind of reason should I give? She is not going to label me a traitor to the kingdom, is she?" The queen said, "Raise your head and lower that butt of yours before I kick it." Lloyd raises his head while slowly looking at the queen. The queen smiled brightly while looking at Lloyd, and she said, "I am very satisfied with what you have done. Continue keeping up the good work." Then the queen left Lloyd, who was dumbfounded by what she said. Then Lloyd smiled like a child and he said, "It seems like she didn't catch me while fooling around, huh?" Javier told him, "It seems you are clueless in this situation like this, but it is nothing. Please enjoy playing around." Different seasons passed by, but Lloyd did not rest at all, enjoying his free time, since he did not know when he would be able to play like that again. Then the spring came and the garden was completed with its magnificent highlight. Many people gathered to celebrate the success of the project. While the gathering is happening, many people are murmuring. One person said, "That girl is the Queen of Magentano. She has an extraordinary air around her that sets her apart from everyone else." Another person replied, "Magentano Kingdom is the strongest country in the world. Our country would like to build friendly relations with this kingdom." Lloyd was listening to their chattering. In his mind, "I knew it. The reason why she wanted to make such a grand garden was to show off that the Magentano Kingdom is filled with materials and money to the public. I guess the neighboring countries will be bowing their heads to her." Lloyd looks at Javier and asks, "Why aren't you eating anything?" Javier replied, "There is something about this that I don't like." Lloyd asks, "What is it? Is it too extravagant?" Javier replied, "No, not that. It is more like, I am thinking that Master Lloyd might be unlucky." Lloyd, with his ugly face, grabbed Javier and angrily said, "Why are you suddenly picking a fight out of nowhere? What is it? What is it that you do not like?" Javier smirked and replied, "That is not what I mean. Remember Cremo and the suspension bridge? Every time there's been a banquet made for you after you created something, a huge incident always takes place. If something does happen again, then it is confirmed that you are unlucky." Lloyd replied, "You're talking as if something is about to happen." Then a huge noise was heard all over the area, and that is because the skull of the dragon falls off from the floor. Queen Alicia was alarmed as to what happened, and Viscount Nort was about to go crazy because the project that he put effort into started to crumble. Lloyd was also shocked. In his mind, there is no way that this will going to happen. I tried everything using my simulation skills, but it never collapsed. Javier told Lloyd to be prepared to run away. Lloyd was shocked by what he heard. In his mind, what does he mean? Javier is bringing up the topic of running away first. Hey, you're not supposed to make that face full of fear. Just what the hell is happening with the dragon bones? Then the mana was collected in that area like a super typhoon was formed. The one who is inside the zombie dragon is the black mage Targa. His eyes are full of anger, looking at the statue of Queen Alicia. In his mind, Alicia Magentano, before you cut off my head, I transferred my soul into these bones, and now, I am completely descended. As the bone of the dragon was completely intact, a dragon's roar was heard all over the place. Then the first thing he do is to aim at the statue of Queen Alicia and smash it into pieces. Alicia was doing a sword stance in case that dragon would attack. The people were in fear while looking at the zombie dragon who was on a rampage. Alicia knows that the zombie dragon contains enough mana to cover the skies. Only a swordmaster and above can stop it. So she shouted, "Get away all of you unless you want to die helplessly." Then she gathers mana in her sword and jumps towards the dragon, with just one swipe from the dragon's hand. All of the people, including the queen, were pushed away. Targa notices something, and he starts to question himself. Is it because I am not still used to this body? I can't move very quickly yet, but it doesn't matter. These mere humans are like ants to me after all. Looking at the rampaging zombie dragon, Alicia concludes that this monster is not a creature that they can even defeat with just pure brute strength. So her idea to defeat this dragon is to find someone to find a way to defeat this dragon. So she shouts, "Lloyd Frontera." But her face started to turn into stone, because her plan and secret weapon was already running for his life to escape. Lloyd Frontera was already doing a track and field marathon from that bone dragon. If the evil bastard was running away, there is another choice, and that is to call the swordmaster Javier Asrahan. So she shouts, "Sir Asrahan." But the swordmaster Javier was at the side of his young master, running with him. That made Alicia lose hope. The young master and his aide, Javier, were like playing in the arcade game running and jumping to avoid obstacles. While running, Javier told Lloyd, "If we keep running, you won't be able to get paid for the work that you did." Lloyd replied, "You money-obsessed lunatic. Is money the only thing you can think about? We need to be alive, don't we? All you talk about is money. I am so sick of you." Hearing that from the money-obsessed bastard, Javier started to question where did he get the guts to say something like that. Then Javier suddenly takes a break from running and Lloyd asks him, "Hey, what? Why did you stop?" Javier told him, "If we leave something like that alone, Our country will eventually suffer as well. I need to protect your honey jar. But Lloyd continuously ran like he was Usain Bolt and shouted, the thing has more than 100 times your mana. Just give up and just continue running. Looking at his young master running fast like a cheetah, Javier said, his legs aren't gonna stop no matter what, huh? On the other hand, the zombie dragon was chasing Queen Alicia and throws a dragon's breath at her that releases a laser beam. She was running as fast as she could so she could avoid it. But from the impact of the explosion of the land from the laser beam in dragon's breath, Queen Alicia was thrown away and that laser was approaching her at a fast speed. She had fallen on her knees because she has lose her strength from the impact. That is when Javier came in to release a sword or a discharge at the zombie dragon. It hit the head of the dragon and the laser beam was redirected in a different direction and missed Queen Alicia. The attention of the dragon was redirected to Javier, and the dragon released that laser beam to Javier, which he carefully avoided. For the dragon, Javier was just an annoying fly. For Javier, the attack of that dragon was inaccurate, but he knows that he would die if he was hit by that even once. To counter-attack, Javier also released an aura discharge on the dragon, but the attack of Javier seems to have not done any damage to the dragon. But Targa was so happy that he is getting used to the body of the bone dragon, and right now, he has full control over it. With that, the dragon was able to fly up to the sky and released a continuous laser beam toward the queen and Javier, which made them both alarmed. The dragon fly over them, and every drop of that laser beam from his mouth creates a massive explosion. The thing that Javier and Queen Alicia's can do is run away from it and avoid its attack, because they will become roasted with just one hit. Like a Pokemon, Lloyd said, Bibiong, I choose you. Then he threw Bibiong toward the location of that dragon. From the sky, Bibiong falls down at the back of the dragon and transforms to his gigantic size. He called that attack Megatron Press and was able to land at the back of the dragon, which made it lose balance and fall. Riding in his bird, Lloyd hurriedly grabs both Alicia and Javier to escape. Bibiong transforms into his small-size figure. The dragon was confused on what is that thing that falls on his back and made him lose his balance. While the dragon was still confused, finding that thing that fell on him, Lloyd shouted, Galming, now is the time. Use the sheet bombardment. Using their language, Galming embarrassingly said, Galming is shy because everyone is watching. Podong stomps on him and says, Papadong, which means, what would that make Bangle if you said something like that? Just sheet it out already. With no other choice, Galming throws his sheet bombardment at the dragon while crying. The bird sheet was raining and the dragon was hit by it. With that, the dragon got angry and shouted, Ah, I will kill you all, while Galming was flying away from that zombie dragon who was chasing them. Queen Alicia asks, Lloyd Frontera, do you have a plan? Lloyd replied, Please forgive me, this is all for nothing. I will offer that thing to someone who is stronger than that. The Dragon King. The king of the dragon that was mentioned in the novel, The Knight of the Iron Blood. The loving and compassionate dragon that upholds order among dragons and loves humans. A dragon king like him would not sit idly by as that zombie lizard runs rampant. I remember that he stays in the area in Gapel. Lloyd asks the queen, Your Highness, how far away is Gapel? Queen replied, Gapel? That place. It will take a day to reach it even if we continue at this speed. Why do you ask? Hearing that could only make Lloyd stun and curse the world. The mouth of the dragon is near, trying to chew them up. In Lloyd's mind, it is so fast despite being so huge. Do we need to fly for a day with something like that on our tail? Javier asks, Is there a way to resolve the situation if we get to Gapel? Lloyd replied, It is 100%. I mean, yes, that is right. We need to get in there. With that, Javier decided to buy time by throwing an aura blast toward the zombie dragon. The surge of aura energy was approaching to the dragon. Looking at that attack, the zombie dragon was not threatened at all. For the dragon, they're just fools, throwing such a useless attack that won't even scratch him. But that attack was not aimed at his head, but at his wings made of mana. With that, The attack created a hole in his wings that made him lose his balance. The dragon was angry for using petty tricks on him. Lloyd called out the queen and said, "Alicia, lend me that sword please." The queen was confused. Why was he calling just her name without honorifics? Lloyd told him, "We don't have much time, just hand it over." The sword. "That sword in your hand." Lloyd told Javier, "We will strike it at a trajectory where it can't dodge at the same time." Then Lloyd gathers his energy in the sword. With his ugly face that looks like in the movie The Predator, he shouted blast. With that freaking super duper ugly face. Seeing that made the dragon shiver down his bones. But he is already made of bones. Alicia noticed that the dragon was stunned by the ugly face of Lloyd. Then the two combined attacks from the sword of Lloyd and Javier were released in the dragon. But the attack of Lloyd was bounced back, and no damage has been made. Lloyd said, "What is happening? It is getting stronger?" While thinking of something, Lloyd was suddenly pulled down by Queen Alicia, and she said, "Sir Asfahan, help me lift his body." Javier gets the gist of the plan of the queen, so he follows and carries Lloyd and aims his face at the dragon. Lloyd asks, What are you doing?" When he looked up, he was so shocked and scared because the mouth of the dragon is ready to eat him. He was positioned like a cannon, and his face is the main weapon to face this dragon. Literally, face him down. The queen told Lloyd to follow his orders and shout blasts every time he was hit. Then the queen smacks his butt like it was a sign for reloading the ammo. With that, he followed the order of the queen and shouted blast. With his ugly face, the dragon could only fall back, farther and farther away from them. No one can withstand his ugly face. The queen praises Lloyd and she says, "You did it, Lloyd Frontera. Your face was so useful." Lloyd could only cry and accept that no one can withstand his ugly face, and even villains in the story shiver. Right now, his face is more deadly than a sword of a knight. Looking at Lloyd, Targa realizes something. In his mind, yes, that is him. The one who cured Magentano's poisoning. The one who repelled my army of mastodons. The one who defeated the Hell Knight. Lloyd then again shouted blast with his ugly face. Seeing his face, Targa could only curse. Holy shit, that scared me. My heart almost dropped even though I do not have one. How could anyone on earth possess such a hideous face? Whatever. This is great. I will take my revenge on both of my enemies at the same time. Then he continues to chase them down. Like a Gatling gun, Queen Alicia smacks Lloyd's butt again, and Lloyd with his ugly face tries to scare off the dragon. His face is more deadly than a cannonball for the dragon. But to counter that ugly face, the dragon created a method to not see it. Javier shouted, "It did not work." Alicia replied, "Damn. I not believe that it covered its eyes with mana. Did it hate that side of your face that much?" Lloyd said, "Wait, Your Highness, why do you keep using my face?" Javier said, "Your Highness, please cover your ears with mana." Master Lloyd, use the screams of hell. Lloyd angrily replied, "What do you mean screams? That is me just singing, you idiot." Javier replied, "Whatever, just do it and sing." Both of them covered their ears so that this guy could sing with his tone-deaf voice. Lloyd sings hallelujah, but the dragon covered both his eyes and ears to protect himself from the curse of Lloyd. Javier said, "Whoa, it is so damn persistent. It covered its eyes and ears while chasing us. How is it even catching to us?" Since Lloyd has no use anymore, they throw him aside. Looking at the situation, Lloyd starts to think deeply. I was wrong. My plan to use the Dragon King is a complete failure. That means we have no choice but to defeat it. Does it even have a weakness? Could such a monster have one? That is when Lloyd remembers what the Queen said, that he will be rewarded by the tailbone of the dragon, and he replaces it with something else, and that is how he pinpointed the weakness. Taiga realizes that he is getting stronger as time passes by. Although he had given up humanity, he was able to become a being that transcends nature, and with one flap from his wings, the dragon was able to boost himself to catch up to Lloyd and his group. Lloyd orders Goming to release spider web flares to the dragon. Like Spider-Man, Goming was able to release that web that bind the dragon to bind him for a short time. The dragon was angry for the trouble they had done to him. When he was able to escape from that web, he was confused about the whereabouts of Lloyd and his crew who had gone missing. Then both the sword master Alicia and Javier jump at the back of the dragon. Lloyd told them to attack the fourth tailbone from the pelvis. Since Javier was able to study anatomy, he was able to locate it and attack it. Lloyd told Javier that it was the fake tailbone that was made of granite and he was able to hit easily, which made it crack. The dragon was in a panic because the bone was starting to break down. Lloyd believes that they will be able to break it since he has two swords masters at his side. The queen was somewhat angry because this bastard told him that it was made of the bone of the emperor whale, when in fact, it was only granite. And from the combination of the attack of Javier and the queen, they were able to break down the tailbone. With that, it was a success for Lloyd. The dragon became like toothless and his tail was damaged. With that, the dragon falls. Before that crisis happened, in Frontera County, Lloyd was chilling out in his room from the mission. Javier asks him, "When are you going to put on your clothes? With that face of yours and what you are wearing, it is like the synergy of unpleasantness has increased tenfold." Lloyd angrily told him to stop insulting his face since it is more annoying when he does it. Javier just laughs at him while teasing his ugly face. Javier said, "Your clothes aside, when are you going to address the Countess and the Count as your mother and father? Even though I want them to call them both my parents, I am not qualified to do so. You are able to do that, yet you address them by their titles." For Lloyd, it was an unexpected question, so he stayed silent. In his mind, what am I supposed to do? They are not my real parents. If I call them that, then I would just be deceiving them. Javier said, "My apologies. It seems I got a little emotional when I mentioned the words mother and father. I have said something unnecessary. Please have a good rest." Lloyd remained silent at what Javier said. It was because he knew that Javier both lost his parents. Before Javier goes out of his room, he asks, "What were your parents like? Do you remember?" Javier asks him, "Are you asking because you were curious about them?" Lloyd smiled and replied, "Yeah, I'm really curious about them." Going back to the main story, the dragon falls off above the sky. Because of the impact of the fall, everything in the area was cleared where the dragon fell. He was shaking while trying to stand up. He was so angry that he lost his balance when he lost his tail. But before he could fully stand up, a large Pokemon falls off from the sky. It was Podong who perfectly landed on his head and pinned the dragon to the ground. Lloyd and the crew also jumped to attack the dragon, who was immobilized. Lloyd throws a maximum output attack to the dragon, but this bastard is not only tone deaf, but also blind. None of his attacks hit. It clearly misses the target. The queen is starting to question where the hell is this idiot aiming to. Javier also releases a strong aura attack towards the dragon. With his ugly face, Lloyd releases a supercharged purification. With that, Lloyd's mana heart skill has leveled up. His ability to purify the poisonous of mana of the undead increases exponentially. Both the young master and his aide attack the dragon to gang him up, because that is their only chance. Queen, Alicia, and Javier continuously slash down the bone. At that point, the bone starts to crack and the dragon has gone wild. Because of that, Lloyd thinks that their attacks are working and they can win that one battle. He was able to gain a skill called half-human, half-dragon because of absorbing a large amount of dragon mana. The skill effect is when Lloyd encounters a dragon, he will gain their interest. These three protagonists with full force combine their attack to finish the dragon. Then another flashback happens again. Like this is a sign of death flag. Lloyd asks Javier, "What? Is it strange for me to ask questions like that?" Javier replied, "Yes. Since you don't seem like the type to be interested in other people." Lloyd said, "Well, I guess I don't really know why I was curious either. It is not like you are my friend." Going back to the story, while using his skill, the dragon's tail was being pushed back to go back to the dragon. Javier noticed the approaching tailbone that would hit his young master, so he shouted and called the young master. Javier hurriedly jumps to protect his young master and become a shield. Lloyd could only cover his head, and it was too late for him to notice it. With the strong impact, Javier was like being hit by a truck, and he coughs blood from it. Trees were cut down as Javier was pushed by that tail. The impact was so severe. His clothes were torn into pieces from that strong hit, and he was unconscious as he was thrown off into the lake. The dragon has gone wild, and Podong was thrown off by the dragon, as his tailbone was now back at its original place. Lloyd from that incident lost his presence of mind and was shaking while calling Javier, the dragon's first target to stamp on is him, but he is lucky that he is saved by Alicia. Alicia grabs his clothes and shouts at him. She said, "Lloyd Frontera, pull yourself together, find a way to survive this like you always have. The kingdom will fall without him. Find a way to save Javier like how you saved me." Lloyd Frontera was so scared because he didn't know what to do. Javier's mana disappeared completely in an instant. He doesn't have the ability to heal and save someone from that. But the dragon couldn't wait for any moment and was at their back ready to bite them. Javier was in the lake, drowning slowly to the bottom. He knows that he needs to gather mana, and he plans to expand it and ram it into each other. But his aura is slowly fading. He is asking if that is the end for him. But he still wants to save Lloyd from that dragon. But his body is drowning in nothingness. Lloyd, on the other hand, was carried by the queen like a princess running away from the dragon. Still, the dragon was so persistent to chase them. Many thoughts are gathering in Lloyd's mind. What he thought was, I should have used my CP to see the ending of the spoiler. I should have gathered tons of RP so I could grow stronger. In both Lloyd's and Javier's minds, I need to save him. I have to do it. I will do it. Then Lloyd told the queen, "Your Highness, please let me jump on your back." The queen was confused about this bastard's plan. Then, like a frog, he jumps at the back of the queen to gain perfect momentum. Javier knows that Lloyd will jump into the water to save him, so he stretches his hand. Lloyd and Javier consider themselves as someone who develops a friendship, and for them, they need to save that friend, which is why Lloyd also stretches his hand for Javier to reach. As soon as they can hold on to one another, Lloyd wants to transfer his mana to Javier, which he intends to let Javier absorb it. Then he transfers that large pool of mana to his friend. The dragon was aiming to release that laser beam onto both Lloyd and Javier. The queen was the only one trying to face him off, but before he could release that attack, Podong, like a cannonball, jumped to attack the dragon. The dragon was hit at the back. Because of that, the attack was diverted in a different direction, and a massive explosion was created in that area. The huge whirlpool was created while these two best buddies were holding onto one another. While Lloyd transfers his mana to Javier, the sword's master notices something. In his mind, something feels off. Master Lloyd's mana. No, is this even a mana? It does look like a mana, but it is otherworldly. It is completely different. It is as if this is outside of the rules of the world. To buy more time, Galming also uses his sheet bombardment at the dragon while crying. Then the angry dragon suddenly blinked at the back of Galming, which made him shock and scared. With a proper combo of the two best Pokemon, Podong throws Bangle at the dragon, and Bangle releases smoke in the dragon. While the dragon was being confused by that black smoke from Bangle, Queen Alicia jumps to attack the dragon from behind. But before she could able to land that attack, the curse that she got from the Black Castle attacking Taiga suddenly sank in. She could only curse because out of all many chances, that is when that curse plays in. Because of that, she fell as she lost control. While slowly losing consciousness from the otherworldly mana, Javier could only think of one thing. I am sorry, you who have taken the appearance of Master Lloyd. Your mana isn't something that I cannot understand. Sorry. He wants to see his young master for the last time, so he opens his eyes slowly. But what he saw was the ugly face of Lloyd, who was drowning while transferring mana to him. With that ugly face that acts like a defibrillator, he was able to wake up and shout like a scaredy cat. And the mana pool started to swirl inside the body of Javier. Then a notification bell pops up, telling Lloyd that Javier, after seeing his ugly face from hell, has come to understand what is outside the causality. On the other hand, the queen was inflicted with pain from the curse, and is holding her eyes while falling. She was saved by Galming. The four Pokemons of Lloyd was the only one who faced the zombie dragon, and they bravely looked at it. The dragon was about to release that laser beam from his mouth once again. Lloyd was holding his breath with all of his might while transferring that mana, but the notice said that Javier was able to control the upper mana that he was able to absorb from Lloyd. And Javier's body has ignored some parts of causality. Now, every cell in Javier's body is functioning as a mana heart. And a large wing was created as Javier was awakened into a new being. Then both of them appeared in the scene. Javier was carrying Lloyd like a princess, and his Pokemon was amazed at the scenario. But if we zoom in, Lloyd is like a zombie, and his mouth is like a faucet where water is gushing out. The dragon was confused because he was not able to see Javier, and he suddenly appeared in front of him. Since Lloyd is not a princess, but a trash, he was thrown aside. Since Javier was really the main character of the novel, like he used to be, he swung that sword just once elegantly. But multiple slashes were created without the dragon being able to notice. The body of the dragon turns into pieces and multiple cubes of bone of the dragon are created. Lloyd looks at Javier. Lloyd knows that Javier did it. He became the strongest human being that was mentioned in the novel, the Knight of Iron Blood, the realm of Grand Master. As a business-minded person who only thinks about money and to live a lazy life, his face turned into a serious guy and told Javier that he was now in charge of the cutting tasks in construction. He was thankful that Javier survived and that someone could lessen the task. Javier could only annoyed, but what he said. But he smiled, seeing that they both survived. And all of Lloyd's pets jumped to cheer for their owner while crying. The queen approaches both of them and they bow down to her. The DP of Lloyd increased because he was able to save people, and if that zombie lizard was not dead, it could massively kill 10 million people. He gets more points about it. He was able to save a man who will, later on, save another child who will create a medicine when he grows up. The chain of effects from all of these has been taken into consideration and has been added to Lloyd's DP, but Lloyd prefers if that DP could be converted into 1,000 gold, which of course, the system did not accept. Javier called Lloyd and said, "Master Lloyd, I heard that the bone dragon doesn't die. I think we need to do something about it. It is already starting to move. Should I cut it down further?" Lloyd replied, No, just let it revive quickly. Since his undead domination level up to level 2, one of the things he can dominate now is the zombie monsters, like zombie dragons. With his evil face, he said, "I have a ton of places I can put it to good use." The zombie dragon transforms into his whole body again, and the parasitic soul within the zombie dragon's bone has rejected the undead domination. With this, the system asks if Lloyd wants to purge the parasitic soul inside the zombie dragon. Lloyd gratefully accepted the offer. With that, Lloyd's mind was transferred to the dragon skull. His mission is to defeat the king of the black mages, Targa, and obtain the zombie dragon. Lloyd realized that Targa transferred his soul into the zombie dragon's body before he was killed by Queen Alicia. There he saw the soul of Targa, who was on his knees. Much information pops up that describes Targa, like his gender, age, job, like he has dyslexia, and what he prefers to do. The only similarity between Lloyd and him is that both of them are single and have not dated a woman before. When Targa is trying to get rid of boogers, he blocks one of the nostrils and blows it on the other side. But Lloyd doesn't care about this too much information about him. Targa said, "I have possessed cursed mana from birth. The people in my village would discriminate against my family and bully us." He cried and said, "My mother called me a demon. She said that I ruined her life and was her greatest regret in life. I still loved her with all my heart." Lloyd's facial expression changes like he sympathizes Targa. Targa wants to continue his story, but Lloyd stops him and his facial expression changes. "Because this bastard has no conscience," he said. "Targa, so what? Villains are not born, they are made. But this guy, he doesn't care. Anything that harms his lazy life should be punished," and he became a boxer and punched Taiga in the face. This ugly bastard broke the fourth wall by not listening to some backstories of a villain. And with that punch, Targa's soul was disintegrated, and he was able to purify the parasitic soul inside the zombie dragon. Then the soul of Lloyd slowly goes back to his body, and it enters into his nostrils. With that, the bone dragon is now under the undead domination. The system notifies Lloyd. Please say hi to the bone dragon that has obtained an ego. The words you say to it will determine your relationship with it. With his evil face and burning eyes, Lloyd told the bone dragon that he was his father. Then the dragon started to gather the laser beam in his mouth, which made all of them alarmed. Lloyd is starting to question if he failed to gaslight this dragon, but it was not a laser beam, but actually a firework, which the dragon threw into the sky. And a firework in the shape of a heart was seen. With the wings of the dragon, he shaped it as heart and called Lloyd his dad. Lloyd touched the bone dragon and said, I will give you a name. You are not anything like a zombie or cursed existence. You are a proud being among dragons. Your name will be Yang Yang. Hearing the name, Javier, Alicia, and the system was so embarrassed because the name was so lame. Yang means dragon, so Yang Yang actually means dragon. But Lloyd doesn't care and hugged the dragon together with his pets. In his mind, all of you shut up. I cannot help that I have majored in natural sciences. My precious baby, it will only take me 1 second to split a mountain now. My dear Yang Yang is a treasure, my greatest heavy machinery. Queen Alicia knows that Javier Asrahan has probably reached the level of Grand Master, that is, a legendary existence that can even cut down gods. And Yang Yang, although a lame name, a power that can destroy a whole nation on its own. Queen Alicia could only make a sad face because his main machinery, Lloyd Frontera, is now a man who could destroy the whole world in just 1 day. She knows that he is now out of her reach. The day after that, a ceremony was held with all of the people in the Magentano kingdom. The queen said to her people, I have caused a lot of trouble to worry because of my rash actions. I will take sole responsibility for everything. The reason that there were no casualties in such a huge disaster is because of someone. Before she could continue to say the complete name of Lloyd, she looked at Lloyd Frontera, who was begging not to mention his name in the public. For the queen, Lloyd was the most powerful human in the world. But he is a person whose dream is to become rich and live peacefully in the countryside. For her, Lloyd's character was annoying, so she wants to make him take what she is going to say. She shouted the name of Lloyd Frontera as the hero, and all of the people looked at Lloyd. Then the queen sticks out her tongue, looking at Lloyd Frontera. Lloyd could only question the action of the queen like a child teasing him. After that, Lloyd was so happy that he said, it was so nice. The queen promised to pay me 2 billion gold for the restoration work. I feel like I can take on a dragon now. Javier told him, have you forgotten that we all almost died? Lloyd replied, the key word is almost. Everyone is alive, and no one has kicked the bucket yet, and that is all that matters. Wow, I can do so much more than just playing now. I can now live a life like an emperor. Then Lloyd continues to laugh. Javier asks, are you something like a god? But no, I doubt it. If you were a god, you wouldn't make your face so ugly like that. Hearing that, Lloyd's face became a piranha that wants to bite Javier and asks him if he wants to fight. Javier asks, where is the real Lloyd Frontera? Is he dead? Lloyd was silent for a moment because he was too stunned to speak. Lloyd said, I do not know. When I woke up, I was already in this body. Javier asks, so you didn't steal the body of Lloyd Frontera intentionally? Lloyd responds yes. Javier lies down and says, alright then, please sing the lullaby. Lloyd, who is annoyed, asks, huh? Is that it? You believe in everything that I said? Javier replied, you make this annoyingly shameless face when you lie. And when you are telling the truth, you make the face like you are vulnerable somewhere. Then suddenly, someone knocked on the door, and he said that he would be coming in. Lloyd asked, who are you? You just came in after informing us? Javier told Lloyd that he did not feel any mana from that bearded man, and he was not a living being. That old man said, I am Dragon Entix, more accurately a message of Entix, the original soul of the bone dragon that you defeated. Lloyd said, oh, I see. Why have you come looking for us? Entix replied, you are not even surprised, huh? Lloyd said, pardon? Is there something to be surprised about? Entix replied, I mean, I have told you that I am a dragon. But never mind, just forget it. Entix said, by the name of a great dragon. I order you, Lloyd Frontera. You are to go to hell immediately and rescue the true soul of Antix. Lloyd just lies down on his bed and tells the dragon that he doesn't want to and bids him goodbye. The dragon was crying and begging Lloyd. He said, "Wait, don't be like that. Can't you help me? What I mean is, please help me." Lloyd said, "Why are you so persistent? I am not going to do it." The dragon could only show his last resort. While begging and crying to this evil bastard, he said, "If you rescue my soul, then I will let you in on the Dragon King membership." His face turns ugly once again, and he says, "Seriously, you are good at business. Let us hear the benefits of the membership then." Another dragon will be scammed once again. Rest in peace, Antix.